Nestled at the edge of a dense, mist-covered forest, there stood an old, abandoned house that had long been forgotten by time and people. Its wooden facade was rotting, its windows were broken, and the once beautiful garden was now overgrown with wild brambles. This house was the subject of local legends, whispered stories of its dark past, and the eerie events that occurred within its walls. The tale begins with a young man named Daniel, an aspiring urban explorer with a passion for uncovering lost places and their hidden histories. One chilly autumn evening, driven by the allure of the mysterious house, Daniel decided to venture into the heart of the forest and explore its secrets. Armed with only a flashlight, a camera, and his insatiable curiosity, he made his way through the tangled underbrush and reached the decaying house. The moment Daniel stepped onto the creaky wooden porch, he felt a sudden chill in the air. The house seemed to groan as if it had been disturbed from a long slumber. With a deep breath, he pushed open the heavy front door, which let out a loud, mournful screech. The interior was covered in a thick layer of dust, and the air was stale, carrying the faint smell of mildew and decay. Daniel's flashlight beam cut through the darkness, revealing peeling wallpaper, cobwebs hanging like spectral curtains, and broken furniture that had long since been abandoned. He began to document the house, taking photos of the remnants of a past life. Each room seemed to tell a story of its own, one filled with echoes of laughter, sorrow, and long-forgotten memories. In the living room, Daniel discovered an old, grand piano, its keys yellowed and cracked. As he approached it, the air grew colder, and he could almost hear faint notes of a forgotten melody playing. He dismissed it as his imagination and continued his exploration, but as he made his way to the staircase, he noticed something odd, a series of small, dusty footprints leading up the stairs. They were too small to belong to an adult and seemed to vanish at the top of the stairs. Intrigued and unnerved, Daniel climbed the stairs, which creaked and moaned under his weight. The upper floor was eerily quiet. He came across several bedrooms, each one more dilapidated than the last. In one room, he found a large, dusty mirror with an ornate frame. The reflection showed an empty room, but when he looked closer, he could see faint, shadowy figures moving in the corners of the mirror's surface. His heart pounded as he quickly turned away from the mirror, trying to shake off the unsettling feeling. He continued down the hallway until he reached a door at the end, which was slightly ajar. Pushing it open, he found himself in a small, dimly lit nursery. The room was filled with old, moth-eaten toys, and a crib stood forlornly in the corner. As Daniel examined the room, he noticed a small, handwritten note pinned to the crib. The note was faded and difficult to read, but he managed to make out a few words. "Help us, ... trap ... double quotes." The air grew colder, and the shadows in the room seemed to deepen. He felt an inexplicable urge to leave, but curiosity held him captive. Suddenly, the floorboards beneath him creaked loudly, and a soft, mournful cry echoed through the room. Daniel's flashlight flickered, casting eerie shadows on the walls. He turned around to see a ghostly figure of a young girl standing by the crib, her eyes hollow and her face twisted in a silent scream. The room seemed to close in on him as the temperature plummeted. Daniel, frozen with fear, could only watch as the ghostly figure slowly moved towards him. The shadows in the room began to swirl and coalesce into more figures, spectral shapes of people who looked desperately towards him, their faces contorted in anguish. The oppressive weight of their sorrow seemed to suffocate him. In a moment of clarity, Daniel realized that these spirits were trying to communicate with him, to seek help for their forgotten plight. With trembling hands, he fumbled with his flashlight, the beam now revealing a hidden compartment behind the crib. Inside, he found an old journal, its pages yellowed and brittle. The journal belonged to a woman named Eleanor, who had once lived in the house. The entries detailed a series of tragic events: the loss of her child, her descent into madness, and the desperate measures she took to keep her child's spirit close. Eleanor's final entry was a heart-wrenching plea for someone to find her child's spirit and give it peace. Overwhelmed by the gravity of the situation, Daniel realized that the spirits in the house were those of Eleanor and her child, trapped in a cycle of sorrow and despair. Determined to help, he made his way back to the living room, where he carefully placed the journal on the grand piano as a symbol of respect and acknowledgement. As he left the house, the oppressive atmosphere seemed to lift, and the cold air felt slightly warmer. The cries and shadows diminished, and Daniel felt a strange sense of relief. He made his way back to the village, where he shared the story of the house and the tragic tale of Eleanor and her child. The local authorities, moved by the story, decided to investigate further. They found that the house had indeed been the site of a tragic loss, and they began efforts to honor and remember those who had suffered there. Daniel never returned to the house, but he often thought of the spirits he encountered and the tale he uncovered. The forgotten house, once a place of dark mystery and sorrow, became a symbol of hope and remembrance, a reminder of the stories that lie hidden in the shadows, waiting to be told.